Hi everyone, it's Donna here from Donna's Creative Corner, and I am here today to try to explain how I make my junk journal, my junk journals, especially the cover part of it. I've had several people ask me about it, so I'm figured I'd give it a try on explaining how I do it. There's tons of inspiration out there on junk journals. Probably the biggest one for me that inspired me the most for my fabric covers was Amity Bloom. Here on YouTube, she does fantastic work. And there's tons of others out there. But let me show you how I put together mine. First I start with just a piece of fabric. This one I have a huge tablecloth out of this fabric, so I'm going to be making lots of journals using this as the base. It's a pretty brocade floral kind of pattern in soft muted, taupes and creams, so it's perfect for a vintage journal. And it measures 9 inches by 12 inches, so the journal itself will be 9 by 6. And what I do, I just start with it folded in half because I only do the cover, the top part of it. And then I pull out my big old bin, and this is only part of it, of vintage fabrics and trims and laces that I have in my stash. There's all different ones in here, some almost kind of wedding trim, some filet lace, some net lace, lots of eyelet trims, which are perfect. This is a vintage one I've been hoarding for a long time. Some table, some napkins or linen doilies. This came off of something very vintage already. All kinds of things. This was a table runner. So I just go through here, I pull out a few things, and I just start laying them out on the cover until I come up with something that I like. This is a personal preference. I like to include several different styles of vintage linens. You've got the filet down here, this eyelet along the edge. I like to put something coming off the edge a little bit of the front, just a little bit, so that in case the pages stick out a little bit, that will kind of hide that. This was one of the collars in that box that I showed earlier this week. This was one of the collars that was in there. I've got a whole bag of this, and I coffee stained some of it. I just lay it out until I see what I like, and then I pin it down. And then once I have kind of the base, I usually I have a big old bag full of appliques. Most are Venice lace, some are vintage ones, some have beads, most do not. So I go through there and I pick out something to be kind of a focal point. And this one I chose a smaller one because I didn't want to cover up too much of the laces underneath. I wanted those to still show through. So what I will do, I have it all pinned down to the cover. And what I'll do, I'm going to bring this to my sewing machine, and I'm going to do just a stitch all the way around the outside, along the edge, and then anything that's loose in the middle, like this is loose, so I'll do a stitch going down here. I'll do another stitch to hold this down, and I'll do another one. This one actually could be left open to make a pocket, but I think I'm gonna sew it down, so I'll be doing another stitch through there. Now once I have all that fastened down, then I'll pin my applique down, and I'm gonna put it on the diagonal so the laces underneath it will show. I'll pin this down and I'll just go around with the sewing machine and sew that on. So I'm going to pause the video here and I'm going to go sew this down, and then I'll be back to show the next steps. So hold on. Okay, I'm back. I have everything sewed down. This is the point if you want to attach anything by hand sewing, like buttons and small appliques or little tiny doilies or whatever. This would be the time to do it. Everything is, I picked out a couple of 3 different vintage buttons. For this one I picked some darker colors to kind of add a little bit more color to it, and also down in the bottom I used one of those really delicate round little things that came in that box that I showed earlier this week, and I just tacked it down with the button. The button's the only thing holding it down. And then a couple more buttons up here, and you've got everything stitched down. Now the next step is to attach the paper. I attach paper on the back side. So I already have a piece cut that is 9 inches by 12 inches. This is from that paper stack that I showed in the video earlier this week. Okay, how many of you actually went to Hobby Lobby and got those papers after seeing my video? They're wonderful. I love them. One thing to remember when you're attaching the paper, if there is a right side up and on it, make sure you have it facing in the right direction. Like there's some words on here, so and I've done this myself by mistake. I learned this one the hard way. I had the paper upside down and everything was upside down, so make sure it's the right side up. And what I do is I just attach it with some binder clips just to hold it in place. I wasn't doing that at first, and the paper was ending up all crooked, and I didn't like it. So I attach it, and that way it kind of stays in place until I get all the way around. And now I am going to go back to my sewing machine, which is in the other room. I'm still learning that sewing machine. I was getting really frustrated a little bit ago before I came back in here when I was going to sew the cover on, because it was getting all jammed up, the thread was getting all jammed up underneath, and I couldn't figure out why. I kept taking the bobbin out and rethreading it and putting it back in, and I ended up watching two YouTube videos. The first one I tried the things that they said in there, and that didn't help. And then I found another one, and it was something so simple. It was the thread coming out of one of the things that needs to go around on the top. It was just so simple. I was like, duh, Donna. But anyway, it's going again, so I'm going to put you on pause, and I'm going to go just stitch all the way around the edge here, and then I'll be back. Okay, I'm back, and the paper is stitched on all the way around, so I'm just going to make it match and fold it. And there you have the cover ready for your pages to go in. And I have my papers all ready to go. It's a combination of scrapbook papers, just like the ones I've shown, children's books, advertising, vintage magazine pages, pages from that Titanic book, vellum paper, with maps, and there's usually some music paper in here too. Anyway, get them all lined up and get them in the order that you want. I try to space the printed with the plain pages for writing, alternating. So these are ready to go, and I'm not going to actually do the stitching part to put them in because it's kind of fiddly and I need to put it in my lap to get it right, but I'll just tell you what I do. I'll put them in here. This one just has one signature, which is simple. Make sure the pages are pushed all the way down, and I hold them in place with some binder clips just so they don't shift on me while I'm fiddling with the stitching. And I have a template that I made for where to put the holes. This album is 9 inches tall, and the measurement between each of these is 2 1/4 inches from here to the first hole, 2 1/4 to the next, 2 1/4 to the third one. And what I'll do is I'll take this, and you got to make sure that is pushed all the way down in. And I take a good old-fashioned phone book, put it on my lap, and put that in the middle because I use an awl, and this is actually my third one that I've experimented. Sorry about that, I hit stop by mistake. This is my third one, and I like this one the best. I got it, I've seen people get it on Amazon. I got mine on eBay. It has a very sharp tip. This one actually was advertised as a tool for leather working. But you just, well, I guess I can do this part. You just take it, shove it all the way through, make sure you're through to the other side. That's where the phone book comes in handy, because that would be very painful if it was going into your lap. Just shove it all the way through, and then all the way through again. So you're going to have your 3 different holes here, and I've been using embroidery, not embroidery, but crochet thread. There's probably better threads that are stronger, but this is pretty strong, and you need a length that's roughly 3 times the width of your album, or the tallness of your album. And this is going to be kind of fiddly, but what you would do is you start in the middle hole on the inside going out and you leave your tail hanging out. You come over here to one of your outside holes and go in, and that's the fiddly part, especially that first one where you have to go in. Come straight up, make sure you're holding this down really tight into the spine. You're going to come up here, go all the way across to the opposite one, go from the inside to the outside, and then come back through that center hole, so both of your tails are coming up in the middle, and then you just pull them really taut so your spine, your pages, your signature is in there really tight, and then tie a knot. And then I leave the tails on in case anybody wants to put beads or anything on the tails. And then you have your book. with all of your signatures in it, or your pages in it. So that's my process on how to put together these vintage junk journals. This one is going to be for sale, as well as this other one that I had done earlier. I just need to put the pages in this one. This one has, this was actually a piece from a vintage bodice, and I've had that in my stash forever and ever, not knowing what to do with it. So I finally found a use for it, and then I put this, this was on a trivet, a vintage trivet, and I took it apart because it was like wound all the way around into a round trivet. So I took it apart into this individual row that's there, and then here's the applique that was on this one. This one actually has some ruffles on it. Couple of vintage, 3 vintage buttons up here. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention is when you're putting buttons on your cover, don't put them too close to the edge, because you've got to be able to run your sewing machine along that edge, and you don't want to break your needle. So this one is for sale as well, and then so is this one. $18 per piece, per junk journal. And I hope this tutorial was helpful. I hope you give it a try. If you have vintage linens, this is a great way to use little scraps. Just make a little collage and you've got yourself a journal. So that's it for today. Bye for now.